Gaslighting. This is a form of psychological manipulation, wherein one person systematically undermines others' perception of reality, memory, or sanity. The term originates from the narrative of a husband dimming gaslights in their home to deceive his wife into believing she's losing her mind. This insidious tactic often involves statements like, "You're just being paranoid," or "That never happened," fostering doubt and insecurity in the victim's judgment. Over time, gaslighting can induce confusion, anxiety, and a profound sense of insecurity. Emotional blackmail. There is a manipulative strategy where one person controls another through emotions like fear, guilt, or obligation. Tactics include threats, guilt trips, shaming, and playing the victim, aiming to coerce compliance with their desires. This manipulation can devastate the victim's self-esteem and autonomy, leaving them feeling trapped and powerless. Victims may struggle to set boundaries or prioritize their needs, fearing repercussions like abandonment or rejection if they don't comply. Emotional blackmail creates a toxic cycle of control and fear within relationships. Isolation. Manipulation through social seclusion is a tactic where one person purposely restricts or influences another individual's interactions with friends, family, or outside influences. This manipulation technique can vary in its subtlety, with tactics ranging from discouraging the victim's social engagements to actively preventing them from maintaining relationships. Over time, this can lead to a weakening of the victim's support network and increase their reliance on the manipulator for companionship and validation. Recognizing these signs and seeking support is essential for individuals to regain control over their social connections and break free from the manipulator's influence. Manipulative flattery. Deceptive admiration involves giving false compliments or praise to manipulate someone into fulfilling the manipulator's agenda. This can include exaggerated expressions of admiration, insincere flattery, or feigned affection to manipulate the victim's emotions and actions for the manipulator's benefit. While the victim may initially feel appreciated or valued, the manipulator's underlying intention is to exploit their vulnerabilities and control their behavior. Over time, the victim may become increasingly dependent on the manipulator's validation, making them more susceptible to further manipulation. Silent treatment. The cold shoulder is a form of emotional manipulation where one individual deliberately withholds communication or ignores another person as a means of punishment or control. This tactic is employed to assert power or dominance over the victim, often leaving them feeling isolated, confused, and anxious. But refusing to engage in conversation or acknowledge the victim's attempts to communicate, the manipulator seeks to induce feelings of guilt or vulnerability. This behavior can create tension and conflict within the relationship, as the victim may struggle to understand the reasons behind the silence and may become increasingly distressed by the lack of response. Projection. This is a manipulation tactic where individuals shift blame or responsibility onto others for their own thoughts, feelings, or behaviors. This defensive strategy involves attributing one's own negative qualities or actions to someone else, particularly to the victim, in order to avoid facing accountability or consequences. For example, if a manipulator is dishonest or unfaithful, they might falsely accuse the victim of being untrustworthy or paranoid by deflecting attention away from themselves and onto the victim. Manipulators seek to escape scrutiny and evade accountability for their actions. This can lead to confusion and frustration for the victim, who may be unfairly blamed or criticized for things they didn't do. Manipulative charm. Deceptive charisma, characterized by charm, charisma, and persuasive tactics, is a manipulative strategy employed to deceive and control others. Through charming behavior, flattery, and charisma, manipulators aim to elicit trust, admiration, and compliance from their victims. However, beneath the surface allure lies a concealed agenda, as manipulators seek to exploit their victims' vulnerabilities for personal gain. Over time, individuals subjected to such manipulation may become reliant on the manipulator's validation, rendering them increasingly susceptible to further exploitation. Love bombing. In the early stages of a relationship, individuals might encounter a manipulative tactic known as love bombing. It involves overwhelming the other person with excessive displays of affection, attention, and admiration. This can include lavish gifts, grand gestures, and declarations of love aimed at creating an intense emotional bond. However, behind this behavior lies a hidden agenda, as the manipulator seeks to exploit the recipient's vulnerabilities for their benefit. Over time, the recipient may become dependent on the manipulator's validation, making them more susceptible to further manipulation. Playing the victim. In the early stages of a relationship, individuals might encounter a manipulative tactic known as love bombing. It involves overwhelming the other person with excessive displays of affection, attention, and admiration. This can include lavish gifts, grand gestures, and declarations of love aimed at creating an intense emotional bond. However, behind this behavior lies a hidden agenda, as the manipulator seeks to exploit the recipient's vulnerabilities for their benefit. Over time, the recipient may become dependent on the manipulator's validation, making them more susceptible to further manipulation. Triangulation. This is a manipulation tactic seen in various interpersonal dynamics, involving one individual strategically introducing a third party into a relationship or situation to manipulate emotions, evoke jealousy, or sow seeds of discord. The insidious technique can take different forms, such as comparing the victim unfavorably to others, flirting with someone else to elicit a reaction, or seeking validation from a third party to undermine the victim's confidence. By orchestrating such scenarios, the manipulator aims to create insecurity, doubt, and mistrust within the victim, thereby exerting control and furthering their agenda. This tactic can have detrimental effects on the victim's mental and emotional well-being, fostering feelings of inadequacy, jealousy, and betrayal. Changing the subject. When individuals engage in diversion tactics during conversations, they employ various strategies to deflect attention from uncomfortable topics and maintain control over the narrative. This manipulation technique involves steering discussions away from sensitive issues or personal accountability by introducing unrelated subjects, sharing irrelevant anecdotes, or dominating the conversation with distractions. By shifting the focus away from the original topic, manipulators evade scrutiny, avoid addressing concerns, and prevent meaningful communication from taking place. This behavior not only undermines the victim's attempts to express themselves, but also perpetrates a cycle of manipulation and evasion, hindering genuine resolution and understanding. Discarding. Discarding is a particularly damaging manipulation tactic employed by narcissists and other manipulators to exert control and dominance over their victims. It occurs when the manipulator decides that the victim is now no longer serving their needs or fulfilling their expectations, prompting them to withdraw affection, attention, or support abruptly. This sudden shift in behavior can be deeply hurtful and disorienting for the victim, who may have previously relied on the manipulator for validation and emotional support. In addition to the withdrawal of positive reinforcement, discarding often involves the introduction of cruel and demeaning behavior intended further to undermine the victim's self-esteem and sense of worth. The manipulator may resort to insults, belittling comments, or even outright hostility, leaving the victim feeling invalidated, degraded, and emotionally devastated. This calculated attack on the victim's self-esteem serves to reinforce the power dynamic in the relationship, with the manipulator asserting their dominance and superiority over the victim. Playing on insecurities. Manipulators often prey on the victim's insecurities to establish dominance and control within the relationship. They identify and exploit areas of vulnerability, such as low self-esteem or fears, to manipulate the victim's emotions and behavior for their benefit. One common tactic is to undermine the victim's self-confidence through derogatory comments, criticisms, or comparisons, fostering a sense of dependency and inferiority. By constantly belittling the victim, the manipulator asserts control over their thoughts and actions. Additionally, manipulators may exploit the victim's fears and anxieties by threatening abandonment, rejection, or punish to ensure compliance. This instills fear and uncertainty in the victim, further solidifying the manipulator's power and control over the relationship. Treating you like a child. Manipulators often adopt a patronizing demeanor towards their victim, evoking a parent-child dynamic that undermines the victim's autonomy and intelligence. This manipulation tactic positions the victim as inferior and reliant on the manipulator's guidance and authority, eroding their self-confidence and independence. Through various behaviors, such as making decisions on behalf of the victims, micromanaging their actions, or dismissing their opinions and ideas, the manipulator seeks to exert control and dominance over the victim, perpetuating a cycle of dependency and insecurity. Passive aggressiveness. This is a more subtle, yet equally damaging manipulation tactic employed by individuals who struggle with expressing their needs, frustrations, or anger directly. Instead of openly addressing conflicts or grievances, the passive-aggressive manipulator adopts indirect and covert methods of expressing their discontent, such as sarcasm, backhanded compliments, or subtle sabotage. By disguising their hostility or resentment behind a facade of politeness or innocence, the manipulator avoids confrontation and accountability while exerting control and manipulation over the victim's emotions and behavior.